Hey there, my name is Cole Adams, and you are watching the best college basketball podcast out there that covers the entire sport of college basketball, brackets, bubbles, and bid stealers. Now, here are your hosts, Sam Fetterman and Jonathan Lidskin.
Six episodes. That is Jonathan Lidskin. Jonathan, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well, Sam. Supposed to have 4 podcasts tonight. A couple guests had to reschedule. No big deal. We're down to 2 tonight. I'm very excited about both of them.
All right, I'm going to throw it down to Trevor McGee from the Daily Beacon. He is our guest to talk Tennessee. How are you doing?
Doing well. Been a long week. It's only Wednesday, so ready to finish up the week.
Friday.
Absolutely.
But hey, in sports journalism, there is no Friday because on Saturday and Sunday you're covering games.
Friday is the start of the week, so
yeah, you had that. What was that stretch that you had earlier this year?
I can't even remember because it feels like it was so long ago, despite being 2 months ago. It was something like 20 events in 18 days, somewhere around that. Insane stretch. I don't.
Yeah, that's like my winter break, except you're doing it where you have to write 4 stories for every game.
Yeah, I think over the month between May 15th and June 15th, I had about 80 articles, something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Jonathan, I don't think has gotten to that total in the last 2 years we've had the website.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
But there is something coming soon, though, right, Jonathan?
Yes. I posted an article today.
Yes, you did. Tell the people.
Mm-hmm. Who's laughing now, Sam?
Hey, I'm posting one tomorrow, so.
I'm kidding.
Tell the people.
Oh, well, I got a couple things in the vault, Sam. I'm finishing up my underrated Illinois class of 2025 recruits article that has become a annual tradition for me. Got more top 100 stuff coming your way. I'm writing Missouri Valley freshman scouting reports right now, and I got to write the next tip-off talk article, Sam, too.
Yes, you do. All right, now let's talk Tennessee. The Vols heading into this season, I think it's probably, we can all agree, their worst roster of the last 6 years or so. It's just not as talented as what we've seen. Zakai Ziegler is gone. Jemai Mashak is gone. Those were 2 program stalwarts. Chaz Lanier is gone, and I don't think they adequately replaced him with a guy of that type of proven scoring. Igor Milicic is gone. Jordan Gainey is gone. A lot of guys are gone, but let's start with who's back in Felix Okpara, the only returning starter from this team. We kind of know what he is at this point. Had his junior season, 3 years now, 2 at Ohio State, 1 at Tennessee. I thought he was pretty good last year, though. I thought he kind of lived up to the expectations that I had, and he's going to be one of the better big men in the SEC this year.
Absolutely. Defensively, obviously, all the potential is there. Drawing plenty of talks as, at least locally, could be a SEC Defensive Player of the Year candidate just because of his presence on the inside. It's that offensive game that needs to take the next step. Around the rim, he wasn't the strongest. Struggled back to the rim. Didn't have great touch around the rim to begin with. So they didn't really expect much offensively because you did bring in Chaz Lanier to do the scoring. You had Zakai Ziegler to pass the ball around. You had Igor Milicic to early in the season score, kind of took a step back towards the back half of the season. But you had those guys to score. So his offensive game didn't really matter that much. But now, as one of those core returnees, I think, the big focus this offseason has just been developing that offensive game because everybody knows the defense is there.
The thing I look at with Okpara is that, the field goal percentage on layups. He dunks the ball a lot. He had 69 dunks last year. That's near the top of the country. But he was just 13th percentile on layups. He was 44%. And that's kind of what you mentioned. This is not a guy that is playing as strong offensively as he does defensively. At 6'11", 240, doesn't have any sort of like finesse to his game. It's kind of all the lob threat type stuff that I think Zakai Ziegler maximizes, and I think he helped maximize Zakai Ziegler last year. But the foul rate isn't good. It's only 33.7%. The free throw shooting was good last year, but the usage rate is so low offensively that you're not feeding him the ball. This year, I'm not sure if they're going to want to do that. I hope they don't, but I think they might have to with the offense they have. Now, let's talk about the guy who's going to be feeding him the ball for lobs, for layups. One of my favorite point guards in the country, dating back to his time at Belmont, and Jacoby Gillespie, coming back home to his home state of Tennessee, high major basketball, going to be one of the best point guards in the country. This is why when Zakai Ziegler was going through that whole waiver process, that lawsuit, I was like, where's he going to play next year if he does get this? Because Tennessee's committed a lot of money to Jacoby Gillespie, and they did it for a really darn good reason, Jonathan.
Well, Sam, you know I love Jacoby Gillespie, but I'm pretty sure if Zakai Ziegler got an extra year, they would have found a spot for him.
Yeah, they would have, but that's not my point.
What he's given to that program. But yeah, Gillespie, one of the elite point guards in the country, great passer, great shooter, really does it all offensively. And actually, I think is an underrated defender too. Like that Maryland team was good defensively and like didn't play that many guys. So it's not like, you one of those five guys that they called the Crab Five could be hidden. Like Gillespie had to defend, and he had to defend some pretty good point guards in the Big Ten as well. I think coming over to the SEC, it'll be a seamless transition for him. He's played he's played fast. He's a quick point guard. He's played in really good systems. I think that in Tennessee's system, I think he will be more of a facilitator, even though at times I think they will need him to score because they don't have a Lanier, they don't have a Dalton Connect. But I don't think that Rick Barnes really runs his offense through a scoring point guard. I think he brought Gillespie over because of his facilitating abilities. And then obviously, he's a much better shooter than Zakai Ziegler was. So you get that addition as well.
Trevor, anything on Gillespie? What do you like about his game?
Yeah, I think those are some great evaluations. I think it's fair to assume that there still is another step to his game. Like you said, it's not a Rick Barnes thing to run through a scoring point guard, but I think his scoring could be the biggest impact because, like you said, there's no Lanier. He's been lights out in practice. Obviously, summer practice doesn't really have that much say in things, but his shooting is obviously the big point of his game as well. So I think that will be a big point of emphasis. The more he shoots it, the better it's probably going to be because I think there was a practice earlier this year where I could be wrong on the numbers, but I feel like one of them said that he made 25 in a row where it didn't even hardly touch the net. So he certainly got the stroke from deep, and I think that will be kind of a big part of the offense just because Tennessee doesn't rely on the three, but there are sometimes they will die by the three. And right now this team doesn't really have much shooting, and Gillespie would be the number one shooter, I'd say.
Yeah, I think a lot of the reason they were dying by the three sometimes because Zakai Ziegler took 199 of them. That's your primary ball handler, not a great shooter, and he's taking that many of them. If you look at the Kentucky game last year, I remember Will Warren talking about this on the pod, the Kentucky games in the regular season. Zakai Ziegler, if you look especially at the one at home, I think Zakai Ziegler took 11 threes, and like people were looking at that game, oh, Tennessee shot 11 of 45 from three, they'll never do that again. Yeah, because Zakai Ziegler took 11 of them. That's why. Chaz Lanier is streaky. Like, we know that. That's what he is. But Gillespie is a guy that I would feel a lot more comfortable with shooting 7 threes if he has to than Ziegler. But I also think the key that the reason why I think Tennessee loves Gillespie and why Rick Barnes loves Gillespie is because it's that same DNA of a point guard that's going to get up in your grill and pressure the ball. You look at that Maryland team last year, for a team that was a 5-man lineup for most of the time, they played a heck of a lot of press and ball pressure, half-court press, full-court press. There wasn't much trapping. It was just, hey, Jacoby Gillespie is going to bother you when you bring the ball up the court. Rodney Rice is going to bother you while you bring the ball up the court. And I think that's something that Tennessee loves. It was something that Zakai Ziegler did really, really well. Maybe not even pressuring the ball from 94, but if he picks up at 60, if he picks up at 47, And I think that's something that Tennessee values. And I think that's one of the big reasons for Rick Barnes in bringing him in. It's because you're going to get that defensive intensity that you need from losing Zakai Ziegler, who is one of the best defensive point guards we've seen in college basketball in the last however many years.
Absolutely. I think also, you lose Jemai Mashak, who is even more of that identity. So you obviously had to find somewhere to get that defensive replacement. And Gillespie definitely is serviceable there, and if not more than just serviceable.
I would say more than serviceable.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had a lot of defense to replace, and there's only so much you can do nowadays. Obviously, the portal's a big thing. So when you look in the portal, Rick Barnes has a big thing for finding guys that fit his DNA. He will never go away from it, and Jacoby Gillespie, I think, fits that to a T.
Amari Abram. Probably the key transfer in the mix outside of Gillespie for this team. You look at the bookends, Gillespie, Okpara, we know those two guys are going to play. We know those two guys are going to be probably the rocks of this team. Amari Abram feels like a wild card because he played 2 years at two different high majors, and it didn't really work out at either of them. Transferred from Mississippi. The efficiency wasn't great. Had a bad year at Georgia Tech. Didn't really find his time in the rotation. Jonathan and I were still believers heading into last year at Louisiana Tech.
I still am a believer.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying I'm
not giving up my stock on him.
I'm just saying we didn't sell our stock.
Yeah,
we didn't sell our stock going into last year at Louisiana Tech. Had a great year, 37% from three. We talked with Talvin Hester about him on the pod, and this is the guy that now Tennessee's doesn't have a Chaz Dinner. They don't have Dalton Connect. But this is their coming off screens and making shots guy.
Yeah, I think there's a very clear hole in the 2 guard spot right now. And I think Abram right now would probably be the guy that would assume it in the starting lineup just because you really don't have another option. There's only 2 other names, I think, that really stand out, and neither one of them are on campus yet, in Clarence Masamba and Peyton Borg. Abram definitely has the ability to earn a sizable role to begin with, and I think you said wild card player right there, and I think he certainly has the ability to prove his chance because he's going to have a big chance just because of the fact that the depth is a lot of young guys, and Abram has a lot of experience, especially going back to those Ole Miss days. He knows what the SEC is. It may have not been his best time, but he knows what the SEC is.
It's not what the SEC is now, but that was a darn good SEC.
Absolutely.
And that was not a good Mississippi team, one bit. Jonathan, do you remember who the coach was for that Mississippi team?
What year was this?
23. It was the last year.
Kermit Davis.
Yes, it was the last year of Kermit Davis.
I was trying to think if they had like an interim or anything.
No, it was Kermit Davis. It's just that is one of the most irrelevant high major coaches of the last 15 years. Jonathan, why did you never sell your stock on Amari Abram?
Well, this is going to sound really stupid, but I watched him play in person when he was in high school, and he was the best player on the floor with like 4 NBA players. I shouldn't say best player on the floor. Like Trey Green was also in that game and played very well.
Trey Green, buy stock now.
But like I will say that Amari Abram was like quite impressive in a game that had Jordan Walsh, Julian Phillips, Terrace Reed, who like everyone is penciling in as like a Big East Player of the Year contender now, and like Jackson Kohler, who might be Michigan State's best player this year.
That's not saying a ton though.
There's a couple other names that I'm forgetting from that game. It was long ago at this point. But yeah, I thought Abram was really good in that game. Was very excited about his potential. And Sam, I swear to God, David was there with me. You can ask him when we do the next show. That he thought the same thing. But I think this is Barnes just bringing in a guy who can guard on the perimeter, guard at the point of attack. I think that if Abram isn't, absolutely dreadful offensively, you'll see him guard the other team's best guard. a lot of nights to take some of the pressure off of Gillespie. Like, I think if Abram does end up playing a lot of minutes for you, it's because you see him, in January and February guarding guys like Tahad Pettiford and LeBaron Philon, like those caliber of guards in a SEC that has a lot of very good ones.
I do want to talk about Nate Ament, the 5-star freshman. I'm not sold on Nate Ament, but I would be interested in hearing the elevator pitch right now from either of you, and then I'll kind of try and refute it.
But can I say something before Trevor launches in?
Go.
I think that my problem with Nate Ament is not the actual player in itself. Like, I think he has the tools to go play in the NBA. Like, I think there's obviously a lot of potential there. But I think Tennessee, and if you're really high on Tennessee, like if you think Tennessee is going to be one of the best teams in the country, I think it's because people are treating Nate Ament like Tennessee got a Cam Boozer or AJ Dubasa, and I don't think he's that type of player.
I agree. So what's the elevator pitch, if you have one, Trevor?
I'm trying to think because, I mean, I try not to sell players over the top like that, and I also, I think they're not. I don't think what y'all are saying is necessarily wrong either. Just because of the fact that I think his usage is going to be so high that it could struggle. He could struggle to translate it over. Just because he's already coming in is probably one of the top options. Just because there are so few people coming back, and Rick Barnes was so high on him. He's already said, I mean, obviously when he's on your team, but he's already said he thinks he's the number one player in the class.
Didn't he say like he did the Kevin Durant drill better than Kevin Durant?
Yeah,
doesn't he say that about a new guy every year?
Yeah, I guess when you do coach Kevin Durant, you try and find you find the guy that can be better than him, and obviously that hasn't happened. You get Kevin Durant once in a lifetime, and you can't replicate him. But
hey, it happened.
Rick Barnes has been trying for a long time.
Kansas State.
But yeah, I think it just really depends on how much they really value his offensive output, because there's a chance he could be taking a lot of shots every night, and that might not be a good thing for a freshman when Rick Barnes isn't necessarily the best with one-and-done guys. He does so much better, obviously, with the transfers. He has one-and-dones in Dalton Connect and Chaz Lanier, but the one-and-dones freshman-wise haven't been so great. Julian Phillips was never really panned out.
He should have played more in the FAU game.
There's definitely some things to be said.
Yeah, but if you'll allow me to kind of go into the Nate Ament both sides thing, like if you're high on Nate Ament, like you are loving the portability of a guy that can play make and score at that size, because the passing is actually kind of an underrated skill for him. I think
he's a good passer.
Skilled in that sense. He has really good vision. If you use him as a trigger man or at the top of the key, the ball handling is there too. But for me, the thing is, the ball handling is there. The skills are there. I don't think he's explosive enough to really get off on that first step. And I think a lot of the shots he takes in the lane are tougher than they should be for a guy that's 6'10" and handles the ball like that. I think he's an okay shooter. I think probably a lot better from a standstill perspective if they can give him those opportunities, or from a coming off screens perspective. I just don't know like what role he's best served in for this Tennessee team, because they need him to create. They don't have enough shot creation. But I don't think he's a great shot creator, because I don't think he's explosive off the bounce, and I don't think he beats people off the dribble.
So what I'll add to that is, Sam, I think I agree with you about most of that. I would push back a little bit on the ball handling. I don't think he's like tight enough with his dribble as he needs to be, and that obviously is something that can be.
That's kind of what I mean. Like the skill is there, but like it's just a little bit less than what it needs to be. Like
I think there's certainly a world where Nate Ament can initiate an offense for a good team. So what I think people are leaving out with like the actual evaluation of him is Tennessee has like one of the best weight training programs in the country, and he's probably gonna be 20 pounds heavier by the time the season starts. So like he's going to be an elite defender. Like I've already booked
100%.
I just don't, and like I think he will be able to get to the rim a little bit better than what you see on the high school tape because he's going to be stronger. But I think with him, my question is just like I don't think he's as far along with his like skills and fundamentals as maybe you would think for a top 4, which is fine because like he's going to be, an NBA draft pick, very likely a lottery pick even next year. I just, Sam, you mentioned like the explosiveness. I don't think he has a super quick first step. I think you're right about that. I don't think his outside shot is like great. I think it's good enough that you have to guard him out there. I just I question like how effectively he's going to be able to consistently get to the rim.
And I think I could be wrong, but I feel like Tennessee might be using him a little bit more from the 3-point line, even just because of the fact that the rest of the lineup's not really going to have much shooting. There's a very real chance there are 2 more bigs playing alongside him just because of the experience. You'll have Akpara, obviously, in that starting lineup, but then you also potentially have either Cade Phillips or JP Estrella taking maybe the 4 spot, and you might even have Ament playing the 3 at 6'10", which would be kind of crazy just because having that many bigs could be disastrous. But I think he could just very well be taking a lot more threes at a high volume, and that could go many wrong ways or many good ways, and it's kind of just one you have to sit and watch.
I want to talk a little more about the front court. Alongside Okpara, you've got JP Estrella coming back. You've got Jalen Carrion from Vanderbilt, who Tennessee got a first-person look at when the Commodores beat them last year. We previewed Vandy last week, and we are so excited about the Commodores. But they kind of needed a real big man, and Carey's more of a 4. But and then Cade Phillips, who I know Jonathan's really high on. So, Jonathan, I want you to start and talk about Cade Phillips.
One of the typical, he's going to stay around at Tennessee, and by the 3rd year, he's going to be, or whatever he's in now. By the later part of his career, Rick Barnes is going to turn, this borderline 3-4-star kid into a player that's really effective, despite not having tremendous upside. Like we've seen it a lot, time and time again. Barnes does this. In limited minutes last year, I think Cade was really effective on both ends. He's a good rebounder. His numbers of efficiency, good. He's not going to shoot threes, but he blocked shots. I think he can switch and guard multiple positions. I don't expect him to score the ball a ton. Like, I just don't think that's his game. But I think that he's going to be a very crucial part of a Tennessee defense that's going to be almost certainly top 7 in the country. I'd go more closer to top 5. That's just what Tennessee does. And Phillips, I think, will be a big part of what they want to do defensively. And I think that's why they brought in Jalen Carey in the first place, like a guy who can play the 4, who probably is more offensive slanted.
My thing with Phillips is like you kind of mentioned it. Like the skill set doesn't scream anything like crazy. It's just like, oh yeah, this is a guy that dunks, he blocks, he gets rebounds. Like if that's not the perfect Rick Barnes role player, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I think he absolutely fits what Rick Barnes wants in a big man. He's the high motor guy, and I think for that reason, I mean, you brought in Carey, but there's a pretty good chance that Phillips doesn't have many starts this year just because of how much energy he brings in off the bench. And plus, defensively, still struggles with fouling. So his minutes don't really ever get up there just because within sometimes 10 minutes of a game, he's already at 4 fouls. So he's got to fix the foul trouble. But other than that, I think he also is going to just be a bench big man anyway, just because he brings the spark that sometimes Tennessee lacks on the bench.
If Phillips comes off the bench, this team will have the best defensive bench in the country, and I don't even think it'll be close. Because they're already bringing Boswell plus defender, Amari Evans, who we'll talk about a little bit, I'm sure, and JP Estrella. So
anything else you want to talk about with Estrella or Carey before we kind of get into the backcourt briefly?
I think the big thing with Estrella is continuing to develop his three-point shot. They've been trying since he got here. There's some potential there. Obviously, the foot injury withheld him last year, and I think that was a big year in his development, so it really hurts that he wasn't able to participate. So he's really one of those experiments that I'm very intrigued to watch this year, just because I think there is potential in his three-point shot, and if he can be a three-point making four, that gives a lot of value in a starting lineup, because Akpara can't shoot. So if you put a guy beside him that can shoot at the same size and has the defense, like you said, defensively, the front court is going to be top tier.
And JP Estrella, noted Maine native. Shout out Maine basketball rankings.
Is Dwayne Brown, I heard somebody say something on a podcast, got to be a couple weeks ago at this point, that the reports about him out of practice so far were very, very good.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. I still think he's got an uphill battle just because there's so much experience in front of him. He'll definitely carve out some minutes early in the season, but I think he'd be fighting to even be in the rotation probably by SEC play, just because there is so much experience in that front court. But I think he fits that mold of Cade Phillips. So by his third year, he'll be plenty noticeable in the starting lineup.
Yeah, he's massive. Looks like a football player.
All right, let's talk about the backcourt a little bit. You mentioned Boswell, Clarence Masemba, Amari Evans, Ethan Berg, Troy Henderson, a bunch of newcomers into the mix. Masemba coming from France, probably a solid defender off the bench is what it seems like there. But Jonathan, I know you like Amari Evans.
Yeah, if I had to make a bold prediction for this team, it probably would be that Amari Evans plays way more than you think he's going to. Kevin Sweeney mentioned something to us back in I think May it was, Sam, that we were talking about OTE, and he said OTE is perfect for a guy like Amari Evans who needs to go figure out how to just stand and be a floor spacer on offense. But his defense is so good, with his wingspan and the way he can switch and guard different positions, I just find it hard to imagine that Barnes keeps the guy off the floor.
And then Trevor, do you have anything to add on the rest of this backcourt?
Yeah, I think you taking a shot with Amari Evans there. I think I'm going to take the shot with Troy Henderson. Definitely way deep into the bag to pull that one out. But he's drawn a lot of, I guess, hype through these summer practices. He fits exactly what Zakai Ziegler was. Found late in the cycle, defensively really strong. I think it's just one of those guys that Rick Barnes is going to fall in love with, and probably be one, maybe not this year to keep off the floor, but I think there's a very real chance that he could be the backup point guard come start of the season.
Yeah, I've watched Henderson a little bit. I haven't said, I wouldn't say I'm overly impressed, but I also will say that I watched Bishop Boswell a lot when he was in high school, and to put it lightly, he's not a good offensive player. And so if Henderson can give you a little bit offensively, I totally can see that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing you look at with Henderson is this is a guy that you mentioned found late in the cycle. This guy was committed to Keith Thurgood at Fordham. He was mid-major offers pretty much exclusively. And Tennessee sees something. When Rick Barnes kind of does that, I'm gonna raise my eyebrow and say maybe there is something there. I'm not gonna say I blindly trust Rick Barnes with this. I probably should, but I'm not gonna just say that a kid that was committed to Fordham is gonna be a star in the SEC. But my eyebrow is raised by it. Okay, there's something here. Anything else you guys want to add before we go?
They lost, they didn't technically lose him, but Hanjay Tamba at St. John's now.
Tennessee legend.
I'd say I'm in like Sam, I'd say that you and I are in like well above the 99th percentile of people that watch this sport. Like how much we watch this sport. And I had never heard of that dude.
Trevor, had you ever heard of him?
Oh, absolutely. He was a Knoxville Catholic alum.
Oh,
right.
He was brought in, not even really sure why, other than being a local guy. Spent last year at Mulligan University locally here, NAIA.
Dude, that's there. I thought that was in Montana.
Nope, it's East Tennessee. So
okay,
it's like I
the
think
reason why I thought it was Montana because he was at Weber State, which is in Utah, and I thought for some reason he was in Montana.
Dude's just traveling the world at this point.
And now he's at St. John's. And notably, according to Jordan Schultz, one of the top players in the portal who was heavily pursued by North Carolina.
To be fair, at the time that he committed to St. John's, he may have been one of the top players in the portal.
Also, at the time he committed to St. John's, he also might have been heavily pursued by North Carolina because they're paying their GM $850,000 to do
they need bodies. They needed bodies.
Has Tennessee hired a GM?
They have not.
Who do you think they're going to hire?
It's a great question because I think right at
Harry
the top.
Parrish.
Yeah, you'd think some of those big names. You'd think maybe Peyton Manning, but I don't know. I think Danny White does a good job as athletic director. That
yeah,
they're
going to make a good hire at that.
Yeah, I mean they quite easily are the best athletic department in the country right now.
Yeah. Great story.
What?
Oh.
Great story. One of my favorites. Go ahead and read it on the Daily Beacon website from Jack Church on Danny White. Trevor, thank you for coming on. Jonathan, you want to take us home?
Yeah, if you came to hear about Tyler Self and where he's working, you came to the right place. If you came to hear about Hanjay Tamba, you came to the right place. And if you came to hear about the latest happenings with Caleb Grill, you came to the right place. This has been Season 6, Episode 32 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers, our Tennessee episode of Tip-Off Talk. We'll be right back in about 30 minutes with our next episode tonight, so stay tuned.
Ski you ma.